everything that's going on. Being down 12-0, being down 5-0, whatever it may be, giving up that many hits, not being able to hit, the trade deadline, who's going to be here, who's not going to be here. There's a million different things right now that are just not great. But, yeah, it is what it is.
How is the team kind of dealing with the possibility that you will be saying goodbye to some of your teammates that you've had here for a long time? Yeah,
I mean, it's not, I don't think, the possibility. I think it's just when is it going to happen, so to speak. And it's not fun. Obviously, you have ideas of who's not going to be around much longer, and a lot of those people mean a lot to you. So, yeah, it's just not fun.
Who does most of the blame fall on?
I don't think there's one person with clean hands right now. I really don't. I don't think we've done anything well this year.
Well, there you go. When they put together the video for the 2024 Blue Jays season, you could probably just run Chris Bassett's comments after yesterday's game over and over and over again. It is Blair and Barker. It is Friday, July 26th, the last Friday before the trade deadline, which is on Tuesday. Happy birthday to my friend Kevin Barker over here. Got a lovely,
I appreciate that.
Lovely donut here from Donut Monster in Hamilton.
That thing looks tremendous. But if I eat that whole thing, I will not make 50.
Well, I can't light a candle. I can't light the candle because
they won't let you.
Well, yeah, we're in a studio. As much as I can make a joke. I can make a joke about lighting the candle. You have to light a candle every day before the Blue Jays pitch.
If you love me, you'd sing to me.
I'm not singing to you. It's bad. And it's enough that I. And again, our friends Donut Monster and Hamilton.
That's tremendous.
Great job. Homemade marshmallow, the whole thing there. It is Kevin Barker's 31st.
Until you laid it on that table. It's
your 31st birthday.
No telling what's been on that table. That's tremendous. I appreciate that. True. It's been a wonderful day.
That's true.
Yeah.
You should hold it and get a close-up. We'll do it when we come back. Get a close-up of the donut. It is quite spectacular.
I don't like being told what to do either. I just turned 49. So.
49?
Yeah.
Wow, it's...
How about that?
Getting up in my territory.
Wow. Yeah.
Almost. Rangers in town to take on the Blue Jays, the first of a 3-game series tonight. There we go. Look at that.
Look at that.
Hazel's looking down at it,
I know, right?
There it is. Very nice. Happy birthday to you. Okay, enough. There.
Fun police.
We were going to have John Schneider, the manager of the Blue Jays, on today.
He big-leagued us.
But he big-leagued us, which indicates that the Jays are making a move, no doubt. And point of fact, the Blue Jays have made a move. This just happened a couple of minutes ago. The Blue Jays sending Ryan Burr down to the minors and bringing up Yerry Rodriguez. So that's it for the trade deadline show. Well, not really. Yusei Kikuchi is making the start for the Blue Jays tonight, as I predicted. Now, Barker, you were saying a couple of days ago, why would you start Kikuchi if you're going to trade him? I mean, I'm saying because he's not going to be traded before the deadline. So start him now. I mean, you don't have an offer on the table for him. If you didn't start Yusei Kikuchi today, what are you telling people?
That he's getting traded.
You're telling people he's getting traded. What happens when you do that? The market
doesn't
dies.
get traded.
He doesn't get traded. So the Jays are keeping the mystery going here.
Yeah.
Again, Yusei Kikuchi expected to start tonight. There have been some deals made already in Major League Baseball, some big ones. I mean, this is almost like the hockey deadline, right? Where everybody spends 3 months talking about how big the deadline is going to be. Then everybody makes all their big moves the day before the deadline. And basically the trade deadline shows there are like 6 people waiting around for a miracle. So hopefully that doesn't happen here, but we've already seen some significant acquisitions. Randy Arozarena gone to the Seattle Mariners. There are some parts of the baseball world that were convinced the Jays were going to trade Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to the Mariners.
Not in this room.
No, not in this room. But Randy Arozarena to the Seattle Mariners for 3 minor leaguers, 2 minor leaguers, and a player to be named later. Everybody likes the minor leaguers. Everybody says the player to be named later is going to be a significant player, although it still probably won't be one of their 3 top prospects. Kind of the most interesting deal, I think, so far is Austin Hayes has been traded from the Orioles to the Philadelphia Phillies in exchange for right-hander Sir Anthony Dominguez and outfielder Christian Pache. Austin Hayes goes to the Phillies. He will platoon with Brandon Marsh. And Sir Anthony Dominguez goes into the Orioles bullpen. And one of the things we know the Orioles wanted to do, or we suspected the Orioles would do, was address some of their bullpen issues. This will not be the last trade the Orioles make. It will not be the last trade the Orioles make for pitching. But those are the two deals that were made, and the Boston Red Sox have just signed James Paxton.
Yeah.
And then
D-backs got AJ Puck too, which
and
is
the D-backs. Sorry,
deal there
that's
too.
good. The the Diamondbacks got AJ Puck for a prospect. A lot of people like AJ Puck has a little bit of control, because I know there are people out there saying, all right, well, if the Marlins, if you can get that for AJ Puck, why not Yimi García? And again,
Puck's a free agent in 2027. That's why.
Yeah, and keep in mind that it's a dangerous game to sit there and go, okay, well, they got their fifth prospect. Why couldn't the Jays trade for their fifth prospect? Because not all fifth prospects are created equal or anything like that, right? I mean, we already know the Jays minor league system isn't very good. So the Jays' third best prospect, probably not as good as a lot of other organizations' fifth best prospects. That's just the way. That's the way we roll in these parts. So those are all the deals up to now. As we mentioned, Tuesday is the trade deadline. Tuesday at 6:00. And, nothing's changed from the point of view of the Blue Jays. Kikuchi, Garcia, those are the guys that I think we expect will be moved. I think somebody will probably acquire Justin Turner just to get that right-handed
Maybe
bat.
that's why he's hitting the 2. Well, I know there's lefty pitching, but, get some fastballs and some fastball counts for a 39-year-old to know the fastball's coming.
Yeah, I
might show a team that the dude can hit a hater.
You know what, though? I was thinking about that. I don't think that matters anymore. You don't think any? I don't think
it should matter.
Well, no.
It should matter.
If I don't think anybody who's looking to trade for Justin Turner is going to have their mind changed tonight.
Yeah, I mean the dude on the mound's left-handed. Like you'd like to see, can he control the zone against a lefty?
Sure.
Could he make a big start? Yeah.
You're gonna base that on one outing. See, that's old time stuff. No, these. If you know what Justin Turner
stuff.
Well, it is. You know what Justin Turner is. What's he going to do tonight that's going to change your mind?
We're going to have to yell at each other on my birthday.
No, but this is the silliness of this.
It is not silly.
It is. What's he got to do to if Justin Turner goes 3 for 4 tonight?
Well, I mean,
does he become more?
A week ago he looked like me. The last week he hasn't looked like me. Like he actually looks like he has a plan and is able with his lower half to get to velocity. That's the point. If you're going to get a 39-year-old to come off your bench, he's got to show you he can either hit a lefty.
So if he does
to
that
the
tonight,
pull side. No, I'm saying it could.
The answers are over. If he does it tonight,
it's not what I'm saying.
Well, you are. You're saying that
if I'm a team and I actually see him have success, it would give me a little bit of hope that if I do get him, I mean, you're not going to get a bunch for him. But at least if you're going to because he's going to a good team. He's not going to a crap team.
So you're basing that on tonight. What you see tonight?
Well, I mean, tonight would help. Tomorrow would help. The next day would help. I mean, absolutely it would help. The last week has helped. If you
try to get along, won't you?
If you watched him 2 weeks ago, nobody in baseball would have wanted him. You know it and I know it. So, yeah, it helps. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be the be-all, end-all. But, yeah, see a dude getting his foot down and hammering a lefty fastball that nobody else can hit that's 91 or 92. Yeah, that'll tell you a little something. That'd tell me something that has nothing to do with old school. Every once in a while, you got to watch a game instead of plugging it into a computer.
Nothing.
Every once in a while. Not all the time.
Nothing to do with the computer.
It sure does.
It doesn't. You know what Justin Turner is. There's nothing he can do tonight that's going to change your mind.
Did you know what he was 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Do you know what he was different? Because he was different 2 weeks ago than he is now.
You had an idea what I don't.
No, he didn't. He stunk 2 weeks ago, and he'd stunk for like 2.5 months in a row. So no, he didn't. No, he wasn't. 2.5 weeks ago. There's no way you'd even have a conversation with somebody.
At this time of the year, the only thing that matters doesn't matter where a dude hits. This time of the year, the only thing that matters is, one, is he in or out of the lineup? Because if he's out of the lineup, that means there's a chance that he might be traded.
I know it's more about getting a guy on base in front of Vladdy and not putting Horowitz against the lefty in the 2-hole. I know why they're doing it.
I don't even think that's that.
It is that.
And secondly, it's whether or not a dude pitches. That tells you whether or not they've got a deal worked out for a guy. If you got a deal worked out for a guy, you're not going to pitch him. If you got a deal worked out for a guy, you're probably not going to have him in the lineup. So that's all I'm saying. At this time of year, don't pay any attention to whether or not somebody's hitting here or there. It's players don't get showcased anymore. I mean, they don't. Everybody knows what Justin Turner is. Nothing that happens tonight is going to change what Justin Turner is. The fact that he's in the lineup suggests to me that they don't have a deal worked out for him yet. And, I will admit I'm a little surprised Yusei Kikuchi is pitching tonight. But
who else would pitch?
I mean, again, if you have a deal worked out for him, you were the one that said earlier this week that he wasn't going to make another start because you were worried that he was going to get hurt.
No.
That's what you said.
You don't listen, do you?
That's what you said.
No, I didn't say that he was not going to, for sure not going to make a start. I said, it will make you wonder why he would make his next start. If he's the one guy that you're going to trade that's going to get you something.
Well, why?
And they've already come out and said they're not trading the other three guys.
Well, no.
So why would it make sense to start him?
First of all.
That's what I said. I never said he was not for sure going to make his start. Nobody said that.
First of all, how do you know they're not going to trade any of the other three guys? Has Ross Atkins come out and said we're not trading the other three guys? Well, no. Tell me. How do you know they're not going to trade them? Where am I seeing that? Did Ross or Mark come out and say we're not trading those three guys?
You're right.
Chris Bassett, did he sound yesterday like a guy who thought he was going to be here the rest of the year? He sounded to me like a guy who doesn't want to be here the rest of the year.
They are paying him a pretty good salary.
At this point,
does it matter if he wants to be here or not?
He wants to pitch in the playoffs. That's what he said.
Look, I'd like to grow wings.
He wants to pitch in the playoffs. Does that sound to you like a guy who's going to be happy as hell to be around after the trade deadline?
Let's be honest. The last month, it's not like he's put his best breaking ball forward.
The point is, nothing anybody says matters. Did you see any rumors?
True.
Did you see any rumors about Austin Hayes?
No, that's a great trade.
Last week,
like that could be Sir Anthony against Hayes in the World Series.
Where did that deal come from?
That's a tremendous one.
Where did that deal?
Makes total sense.
Did you guys see any rumors about AJ Puck being traded to the Diamondbacks? I don't remember Peter Bendick saying we're trading AJ Puck. I don't remember the Diamondbacks saying we're interested in him. What I'm saying is, nothing matters until it's done. Everything else is bull.
So we should
everything you hear is bull
until the Tuesday.
No, we can talk about it. You can put two and two together and come up with a deal that makes sense. It would make no sense for the Jays to trade Vlad to the Oakland Athletics. I still ask you the question: right? If you're looking for one guy that could get you a little bit something better than the other guys, would be right now Yusei, because of where he's at in free agency, what he's done, which arm he throws with, how hard he throws. Actually, I would rather have a guy that I have some control over. Why,
guys? Who else is it?
That's why I would say that's why you got what you got for AJ Puck, because you've got him under control for a couple of years. You don't, unless the guy is really good. Unless the guy is really good,
we're talking
right.
About
unless you're talking like a Max Scherzer level pitcher, a guy who's really good. Control matters.
We're talking about the Blue Jays. We're not talking about other teams. Who else they got? That's good.
Do they have to trade?
Well, I guess not.
Well, no, you're saying who else do they got? What does that matter? Like, what do you mean who else do they got? What does that matter?
You saying that the other teams would rather have guys that are under control? Yeah, thanks.
I would think
who the Blue Jays got that's good, that's under control for a while, other than the first baseman?
I would think a pitcher like Chris Bassett would still get some.
Boy, that's a stretch.
Well,
good luck with that. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it because he's been around forever, if anybody deserves to get traded and go to a really good team and have a chance to win a World Series, it's anybody in that rotation that's been here for the last couple of years.
That's nice. That's
what's true.
That's not what I'm saying, though. I'm saying that there is a value to having a guy under contract. Now, there can also be the flip side of that is, do you want to have a guy under contract for that extra year at $20 million or whatever it is at his age? So I
think it's the Gosman 33 who's throwing a bazillion pitches. That's not getting swing and miss.
Again, I'm just saying that you can't. There's a danger here in looking at deals that are being made and saying, okay, well, why didn't the Jays go ahead and make that deal? I've said I don't think they get much for any of their players. I just don't. The best you're going to get is like I said, maybe a Teoscar Hernandez type deal, where you're getting a guy who 3 years down the road could be something, 2 years down the road could be something, or it could be nothing. But I'm not surprised Kikuchi is pitching today.
Well, you just said that you are surprised.
No, I said
so you
I
changed your
said-
mind in 10 minutes?
No, I said I was a little surprised, but based on the fact that we've already seen, a pitcher move here, I think that it's understandable that the Jays would start Kikuchi. I don't think you protect him.
Yeah, it might be the 30th before they trade him. That might be what it is. Maybe they're Maybe it's not going to be the 27th. It'll be the 30th.
And of course, the other thing that happens if you don't pitch a guy today. What are other teams first thinking?
Is he hurt?
Exactly.
I guess.
So there's a lot of things that go into decisions at this time of year, and that's why I say don't believe anything until the deals are actually done.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm not paying any attention to the Jays aren't going to trade anybody under control. They will if they get an offer. I mean, if I'm the Blue Jays, it's to my benefit right now to tell everybody off the record that we're not trading anybody because I'm trying to talk up the market for them. I'm not going to come out and tell you what I'm going to do. But anyhow.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean, why would you? Why would you come out and tell people what you're going to do?
Just not sure what you get. Barrios is struggling. Gosman's not getting swing and miss, and Bassett's almost 36.
That's fine, but that doesn't mean you come out and tell people.
Yeah, it's smart. I mean,
what you're gonna do.
If anything, they are a very secretive front office.
They don't leak.
Like you.
They don't leak.
We have no idea, which is kind of cool, right? Like there's still a lot of unknowns
I'd rather we
about
did have an idea. I'd rather it was back like the J.P. Ricciardi days where you'd get a phone call and say, we owe you one. Here's what we're doing. It is an Apple game tonight. Yusei Kikuchi against Andrew Heaney. The game will be on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. We will be doing Blue Jays talk following the game as the Jays look to rebound from, was that the worst game of the year last year or yesterday? I got asked that coming in today. Was that the worst game?
I think that's the worst the bullpens looked all year.
That was
3-0 in the sixth inning, and then it turned out to be 13-0.
Big crowd on an afternoon. It had the feeling of being a
People
really
get released
bad game.
because of how bad it was.
Yes.
In the pen, and they still should.
Yeah.
I mean, you can think of the names that shouldn't be in that pen right now.
Yeah, that is the type of game that really does suggest that. What are we talking about? We've talked about there's really no great sense of urgency. I don't think
doesn't seem that way, does it?
To this particular front office at this time.
No.
So there you go.
It's okay to walk a guy with the bases loaded.
Well, that's not just that. I mean, it's also you don't have any other. Let's be clear. You don't have any other options.
They're a quadrillion out. You got how many arms in the minor leagues?
Not many.
Pick one of them.
Not many, apparently.
Pick one of them. I'm sure one.
I continue to be confused about why this organization, for example, isn't in on guys like James Paxton. Just because if you're going to trade a starting pitcher, you're going to need somebody to come in here and throw some innings. And I just, when the season is over, I would love to go. I'd love to be able to go to John Schneider and Pete Walker and say, what does it tell you guys when you guys are sitting there looking at the dross you've got in the bullpen right now and other teams in baseball are adding guys? Yeah. Are they adding guys who are all good? No. But at least they're trying. At least they're trying. What's your front office doing?
Yeah, if
what are they doing?
If one of them gets canned, we'll FaceTime one of them.
Yeah. Like,
okay.
What's your front office doing?
Yeah, I know.
I made this point earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And I know some people in the organization didn't like it, but tough titty.
Can you say that?
Yeah, I did. You basically you left Pete Walker and John Schneider without a closer.
Yeah. And a setup guy.
For a couple of weeks.
Long enough.
I mean, you did. You basically didn't do anything for a couple of weeks. Now, I'm not saying that you go out and blow the roster up, but I'm saying it wouldn't hurt to find somebody on the waiver wire who might be able to come in and
wouldn't be too shabby.
Be better than the stuff that you've got. Other teams are doing it. Bad teams are doing it. Good teams are doing it. So
it is a little head scratching.
Well, it is.
Yeah, it is. That part of it is just You continue just to roll that out there and how bad it looks.
It's
Yeah,
like
it
at
is.
least give people an indication that
There's a standard in the organization, and we don't allow this.
yeah.
How about that?
That's
where it's at. Like, you're not good enough to be in the big leagues. You're not going to be on our team because you're not good enough. Like, that's, I think, no. Again, I mean, it sounds like that sometimes a little bit of old school. No, it's not. Like, it's a performance-driven league. When you're not performing, where you at? You're not in the league. But I don't think sometimes it feels that way, does it?
No, again, I can only react to what I see or I don't see, and see a lot of moves being made this year. So that indicates to me that I trust, as much as I know that this front office likes to think they're the smartest guys in the room all the time. I do trust that they're intelligent enough to look at what's going on out in the field and go, boy, this doesn't look real good. And I think they have good enough intentions that they would at least be trying to address that situation. But, I mean, for a bad team, this front office has been awfully happy. Seems happy. Seems like everything's good.
Well, you said it.
I mean, I look at, seems like everything's good. Nate Pearson's still going to be running out. That seems good. Happy with that. Right? Seems like they're happy with that. Anyhow. And I'm not just picking on Nate Pearson. I'm just saying in general. It's.
But you can say Nate's gotten lots of chances.
If you looked at the waiver, if you looked at the personnel moves or non-moves that have been made this year, you'd swear to God that this was the best team in baseball. That everything was great because it's the same old guys being run out doing the same thing. You would look at this team and go, my God, they must be good.
Yeah, but the best thing about it against the lefty today, most of the kids are in there. Horowitz is in there, Clement's in there, Schneider's in there, Jimenez is in there, Kiermaier's playing. They give the Varsho a day off against the lefty, which is
that's fine.
Probably welcomed,
and
that's the one thing. That's one thing I would think after the trade deadline, right? Going into the next season, Dalton's probably going to be your center fielder.
Yeah.
Help him figure out a way to hit a heater. Like, you got 60 games left? I would think 60 games, figure that out. Like, whatever you have to do with his lower half to allow him to get a flatter bat path more consistently, making contact in the right point more times than not. I don't think it's lack of bat speed, but he does have a lot of upward movement in the barrel. Like, when you're doing that, you miss a lot of pitches you shouldn't be missing. And now I would think he's like, I'm not saying a project, but you would think second half. I mean, I know it's not really a second half, but the last 60 games, when you ain't really playing for a ton, that would be one thing, right? Let's figure that out. Let's put everything we got into what if he ever started hitting 260 versus the fastball? Because you could argue he's one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball, if not the best. Like, Ken off the charts good.
Yeah. Ken Rosenthal was on foul territory today, by the way, saying he didn't understand the logic behind the Blue Jays putting their faith in this core group. It's interesting. You're starting to hear more and more of that from the national media as well.
People. Yeah.
You really are. You're starting to hear more and more of that. And I'm maybe these guys. And if that happens, I'll give them credit. They're keeping their powder dry. They're keeping their mouths shut. Maybe they've got the mother of all trade deadlines planned for us.
I hope so. It'd be a lot of fun to talk about.
Well, it would.
Yeah, it would be. It'd be pretty cool to watch it develop.
In the very least, I think we can all agree that this team needs a refresh. It needs something. It needs something to tell the fans that what you've seen this year is not good enough. I think we're at the point now where people want to see somebody take responsibility.
Yeah, I think there's some veterans.
And it's beyond Ross Atkins coming up and saying it's my fault.
There's some veterans in that locker room, obviously, are not very happy. How do you start turning the corner with that and, showing some veteran guys who have been around and been through the grind that you're all in? We're going to do whatever it takes to help out people that have been here.
It is Friday, so we will go to the back leg line, 416-413-3959. David Samson, former MLB executive, host of Nothing Personal with David Samson, will join us. And in a few minutes, Ryan Divish of the Seattle Times covers the Mariners. We'll talk about the Randy Arozarena deal from the Mariners' perspective. We'll talk about or ask Ryan who else they may be targeting, and we're going to eat Barker's donut because
You're going to help, right?
It's starting to tilt. It's starting to tilt to one side.
Yeah.
There. That marshmallow is.
Yeah, because you got me a donut, I apologize for raising my voice at you earlier. I apologize.
That's fine. That's fine. It's your birthday. You're getting old. You're entitled to be cranky. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet. All right, it is Friday, so the back leg line is open, 416-413-3959.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me have some of that.
That
Man,
muffin, or that donut disappeared.
wow.
It was good. You ate the marshmallow, though.
Yeah.
It is Barker's birthday, so I bought him a little treat from the Hammer. And yes,
You're going to buy me dinner, too, at the field.
I'm not buying you dinner at the field tonight. Mm-hmm. You're buying me dinner. You owe me dinner after the abuse.
I gave you a ride home. Yep.
I got a call from somebody saying, will you guys settle down? Or a text from somebody saying, will you guys settle down? Somebody
Can't promise.
Somebody who we need to listen to.
Uh-oh.
You guys try to get along, won't you?
I miss Buck.
I think Buck's in France.
He'll be back soon, I think. Next week.
If I'm not mistaken. So the question is, when he does get back, how different will the Blue Jays look at that point in time?
You'd be shocked it's only the two guys, Yusei and Garcia.
I don't know. I mean, we're finger painting right
We
now.
are.
We're finger painting. I have no
Will you
idea.
be this? Let me say it to you this way. Would you be disappointed if it was only those two guys?
No.
Okay.
No, because I don't know what anybody else is going to get me. And I look at Danny Jansen again. Who's catching?
It's a good point.
So no, as I've said, the only thing that would shock the hell out of me, the only thing would be if Vladdy is dealt. That's the only thing. Nothing else. I mean, obviously, if Dalton Varsho were to be traded, you kind of go, oh, okay. But other than that, no, that would be the only thing that could shock me. The reason I mention that is because I didn't pay a lot of attention. I don't think Kevin did either, to rumors that Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that the Jays were going to trade him to the Seattle Mariners. Now, it made sense to me that the Mariners would be interested in him because clearly the Mariners need an offensive jolt. But they got that jolt, or at least they think they did, last night, or I guess early this morning to be exact, when they acquired Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays for their number 12 and number 22 prospects. And, of course, a player to be named later that everybody's absolutely convinced will be in the All-Star game for the next 10 years because that is the way the Tampa Bay Rays roll. Ryan Divish covers the Mariners for the Seattle Times. He joins us on Blair and Barker. Ryan, thanks so much for doing this. Look, we saw the Mariners a couple of weeks ago. We had Brett Boone on talking about the lineup, and we were kind of laughing because, here in Toronto, we've spent 2 years going, man, if only we'd realized what we had in Teoscar Hernandez. And then, of course, Teoscar leaves the Mariners, and their lineup looks awfully thin as a result of that. Is Randy Arozarena, to your mind, is he going to be their big acquisition? And what specifically does he give them that they haven't had?
I don't know if he might be their biggest acquisition. I think they're still going to try and add pieces. What he gives them is probably something more than what they have now, which is somebody that could have an OPS over 750. I mean, the Mariners are the worst offensive team in baseball. They strike out more than anybody else. They have the lowest batting average, which, batting average is whatever. They don't have a very good on-base percentage. They don't really hit for enough power. And they're bad with runners in scoring position. But, other than that, I mean, everything's great. So, I mean, with Julio Rodriguez out for a couple of weeks with an ankle sprain, J.P. Crawford out for a month and a half with a broken pinky, and Mitch Garver and Mitch Haniger looking more like corpses than players, they just had to get somebody. They can't waste the pitching effort that they've gotten from their starters. So they needed something, and Arozarena fits them a little bit. He's not a great defensive outfielder. I don't even know if he cares about defense, but he can hit a little bit, and he isn't afraid to, of the big moment, and he hits good pitching. I know that he's gotten off to a slow start this year. He's picked it up lately, but he does give them at least the threat of something happening or making something happen in a plate appearance. And right now they don't have that, especially with Julio out.
Yeah, and the thing that obviously we've all seen Randy play a lot. We've seen him a lot in this division, but he's a show too. Let's be clear. You want to talk about adding a jolt to your offense? That's the way he is. Everything he does has a lot of energy to it.
He has swag.
Pardon me?
He has swagger.
He has swagger. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's we've been talking about this for a while. I think it's a great pickup for a team that that wants to take a run at things, because I do think he gives you a little edge. He gives you something he gives you something that works, I think, is I guess the way I would put it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, he does bring that edge, that swagger, some confidence. Even when he's not going well, he plays with a lot of confidence. And the Mariners just haven't been that way. It's really a passive hitting lineup. And there's nothing passive about Randy Arozarena in anything he does. So, I do think it's a good fit. I mean, like, you got to bring in some attitude and bring in some swagger. I think, like, he accomplishes both of that. And I think for the Mariners, the big thing was they didn't give up any other prospects in their top 10, which means if they really, they've made offers for Vlad Guerrero. I mean, like, if Mark Shapiro, because I don't know that Ross Atkins is making a call, if Shapiro decides, hey, you know what, this is the offer we want, maybe they'll do it. But, they had to do something. They had to get better. They're going to continue to try and add another hitter and probably a reliever. So, I think Arozarena helps them. I mean, like, you look at it, he gets a little expensive next year and the year after that, and that's one of the reasons why the Rays wanted to trade him. I don't think that the Rays really wanted to trade him otherwise. So, I think he'll be a good addition for the Mariners.
Ryan, in the end, who do you think takes the fall for the bad offense? You mentioned the pitching staff, how good it is, how it's basically carried the team the entire season. Now, all of a sudden, the Rangers are much better. They're what are they? They're a game and a half behind the Mariners. The Astros are a game up in the American League West. Who takes the fall for this? Say this goes real south, which it could, right? I mean, they're trying to – you would think a front office is just trying to add a jolt here and say that we see what we see. We have your back. We're going to do whatever it takes to try and get you over the hump. What if it doesn't work? Who takes the fall for it?
Well, Jerry DiPoto and Scott Service are in the final years of their contract. So, I mean, like, they have options for next year, but I think if they don't make the postseason, if they fall flat on their face, then I think the Mariners move on. I think that they have to. I mean, you've assembled this pitching rotation and you're going to waste it. And I mean, like, the Mariners ownership didn't help them because they limited their payroll significantly to the point where they couldn't just go out on the free agent market. They had to trade away pieces and, create payroll flexibility. The new cool thing in Major League Baseball, which is just stupid because teams have no money apparently. So, like, they tried to operate within the margins. You sign Mitch Garver to a $12 million deal, but, you're not signing him with 2 years. You go get Mitch Haniger back because you shift some money around so you don't have to pay Robbie Ray for next year. You make the trade that sends Kelnick to the Braves so you can get rid of some money from other contracts. All these things to work around money to bring in players, and the players they brought in have been bad. I mean, they've just been bad, all their acquisitions. So that kind of falls on – it can't fall on the hitting coach necessarily. And, I mean, the manager will probably have to wear it. But, yeah, I think if these guys don't make the postseason, then I think they'll probably both be gone because it's the way the contract situation works. And really they've had, 9 years or whatever it is. They made one postseason appearance, and, like, they're about to, if they don't make the postseason this year, they'll have an epic run from their starting rotation where they're going to have probably use the fewest starting pitchers in all of baseball through the most innings and probably deliver the most quality starts. And, they're not going to get there.
Boy, that sounds a lot like exactly what happened to the Blue Jays last season. The minor leaguers that the Mariners gave up. Look, the Mariners, you've talked about it. They've been so good at developing pitchers recently. And when I saw that the Rays got a Mariners pitching prospect, my eyes kind of lit up. Tell us a little bit about Hopkins because, just doing some reading on him, it's pretty clear that a lot of the national voices when it comes to scouting or player development really seem to like this guy.
Yeah, I mean, both of these guys are real guys. Aiden Smith, the outfielder, like, he reminds me a lot of, like, the two Lau and Low in Tampa were left-handed stick, high contact, hard pop, hits the ball hard and can run. I mean, he can really run. Like, he's a real dude. And I think, like, a lot of people, he was under the radar for a lot of people, but he's really good. And Brody Hopkins is a guy that was a two-way player coming out of college. They wanted him to focus on pitching, but he's a guy that, like, they do all the testing, 60-yard dash and some of the kind of like the NFL testing, shuttle run, everything like that. He tested out higher than any position player that they had. His 60 time was faster than Julio Rodriguez. That's how good of an athlete he is. And they think that Mariners loved him as a pitcher because he's such a good athlete that they feel like he can make adjustments quickly. He'll be able to pick up, be able to learn pitches and understand tunneling because he's so athletic. And so, yeah, he's a real guy. And I mean, like, they gave up 2 guys, but their farm system is very deep, and they didn't give up any of their really prized top 10 guys. And they would. I mean, like, for Vlad Guerrero, they'd give up the catcher, Harry Ford, the number 1 guy, and the second baseman, Cole Young. They would give up those 2 guys if they could get Vlad Guerrero. I mean, I know that they're willing to do that to go the distance. They made it. It's the same thing when Juan Soto was available a couple of years ago. They made an offer. I mean, they made a legit offer. Now, granted, the Padres were willing to give up a lot more. And maybe the Blue Jays are just going to say, no, we're going to try and run it with Vlad again. But they made an offer. I mean, they have real interest in him. Now, I've kind of thought that the Blue Jays won't trade him. I'd be stunned if they do. But, sometimes you just look around and say, well, this is the best offer we're going to get, and maybe this is the time. But I don't. I think you guys probably think this as well, that's a Mark decision, not a Ross decision on that one.
Okay, well, now that we have you on the line, we can apparently Jeff Passan is just reporting that Yimi García has been traded to the Mariners.
Yeah.
There you go. I'll tell you what. So I know you're going to have to go and do some work very quickly. The main return for the Blue Jays outfield prospect, Jonathan Clase. So I'm going to let you just run, but very quickly. What do we need to know about Jonathan Clase?
It's my day off. Our other guy, Adam, is in Chicago. I'm in scenic Lethbridge, Alberta right now.
You're in Lethbridge. What are you doing there?
I'm watching my stepson play high school baseball or Legion baseball. So I'm in Lethbridge.
There
in
you
the
go.
cool of southern Alberta hanging out. Jonathan Clase is a switch hitter that's very, very fast. I don't know if he can hit the big league level, but he can run the bases. Not the greatest fielder, but I think if you work with him, he could become one. But he has real, like, plus speed. And the Mariners needed a strikeout guy and they need a middle relief guy because the Gregory Santos, the guy from the White Sox, has been hurt a lot. And Matt Brash hasn't thrown a pitch this year. He had Tommy John, so they needed middle relief. So Jimmy fits that. Like, he's a guy that can do that. He'll pitch. And I mean, they need guys that can post because, like, right now, they're using Trent Thornton in leverage situations, and that's just not going to cut it.
No, that didn't cut it here either. Listen, Ryan, we're going to let you run and enjoy the rest of the tournament. Best of luck to your stepson. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for jumping on. Thanks, Ryan.
man. Appreciate it.
It's a little windy here in Alberta. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah, I've heard about that. You're not getting any smoke yet, are you, from the forest fires?
Yesterday, but today's been better. So.
Okay. Well, fingers crossed, man. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah, have fun.
Take care.
You.
See you guys.
All righty. It's Ryan Divish. Does a terrific job covering the Mariners for the Seattle Times. So that would explain why perhaps John Schneider was not available today. Jeff Passan reporting the Mariners are acquiring Yimi García from the Toronto Blue Jays. Outfield prospect Jonathan Clase going to the Blue Jays. Ken Rosenthal reporting that the Orioles are acquiring Zach Eflin from the Rays. So there you go. The Orioles today adding a starting pitcher and adding a bullpen arm. I thought the Orioles might be a place for Yusei Kikuchi because we've talked about Yusei Kikuchi having success against the Yankees and generally pitches well against them. But there you go. This is, it's interesting because one of the things Passan told us a couple of weeks ago when he was on is he thought that there could be some trades made before the deadline. And look, if you're teams and you have a need, if you can get a guy in this weekend, why wait till Monday?
Yeah,
That's
makes
Friday,
sense.
Saturday, Sundays, 3 games for you.
Yeah, I just don't like the Clase thing where it's he's fast, but he's not a very good hitter. I mean, I don't think we expected to see Garcia bringing back, a top 5 guy. I get it, but it's again, there's something here to work with a little bit anyway with the speed, right? You can't teach that. So
first of all, this organization doesn't have a lot of outfield prospects.
You're right. And he's a switch hitter.
He's a switch hitter.
That's
but
good
also,
too.
again, because I know what people are going to just go back and read everything that was written when Francisco Liriano was traded for Teoscar Hernandez. I'm not saying this guy's going to be Teoscar Hernandez by any stretch of the imagination, but take a deep breath. You weren't going to get anybody's top prospect. We've been telling you that all along. That's not what happens at the trade deadline. But again, Yimi García traded from the Blue Jays to the Seattle Mariners for Jonathan Clase. So far, that is, in the way Jeff Passan wrote it, the main return for the Blue Jays outfield prospect, Jonathan Clase. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right, Jonathan Clase. But we will, we'll stay on top of that. And there you go. There are 2 guys in this organization that I think Kevin and I both thought would be traded.
Yeah.
One of them is Yimi García. He's just been traded. The other guy is starting tonight for the Blue Jays. But that's the way things are going to happen over the next couple of days. It really does seem as if it really seems once the Mariners, once the AJ Puck deal was made, and then the Arozarena deal was made, it seemed as if that kind of broke the logjam. Because Arozarena, quite frankly, I looked at the players available at the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. I thought he was the biggest name that was going to be moved. And, I mean, other than the pitchers. Yeah. And with him going early, and I credit the Mariners for doing this, getting the jump and everybody else, I think now you may start seeing some more moves being made. Yeah. But there you go. It is, and I'm told it is. Thank you, Show Ali. He's done some research for me. It is Clase. So Jonathan Clase coming to the Toronto Blue Jays for Yimi García. And,
yeah, good for Jimmy. I mean, he's a veteran guy. He's going to a contender who's in the heat of the race, right? It's, he's surrounded by the Rangers and the Astros. It's going to be right to the end. I mean, he's got a chance of making the playoffs. He's got a chance of pitching in some big-time games starting in September. I mean, their playoff starts right now, today. I mean, the next time he takes the ball, they hand him whenever he's getting the ball. And that's a pretty good pen they got. Like, pitching is not their problem. So you can never have too many guys that have experience, and the Bright's not going to be are not going to overwhelm him. And he's got stuff to get righties and lefties out, which is a big deal, too. So good for him.
Clase is 22 years old, native of the Dominican Republic. He has made 43 plate appearances for the Mariners this year. Doesn't really matter. He had a double and 3 RBI in that time. Just looking at, he was at AAA with Tacoma, hitting .274, 10 home runs, 34 RBI. Where's his stolen bases? There they are, 26 stolen bases, 9 caught stealing. Again, he is a 22-year-old switch hitter. And it's funny because I've been sitting here thinking, what do I think of when I think of the Cleveland Guardians or Cleveland baseball in general? They've always had switch hitters.
Yep.
They've always had switch hitters. Mm-hmm. And Ben Nicholson-Smith reporting that the Jays are getting a catcher as part of that deal. Jacob Sharp, I believe is his name. Let's call him up. This is happening in real time, folks. So let's see if we can get some more information on Mr. Sharp. Jacob Sharp from Fullerton. Here we go. Why is that UNLV thing popping up? He is a right-hand hitting catcher. 5'7", 180. 22 years old, a former 17th round pick of the Mariners. And what was he? He was at single A this year. Mm-hmm. Single A, hitting .255 with 6 homers and 29. I'm sorry. Yeah, 6 homers and 29 RBI. So he's listed according to the Mariners as a catcher, right fielder, and left fielder. So there you go. A couple of young players coming back from the Seattle Mariners for Yimi García. And that, not knowing anything about these guys, I mean, I can tell you that's the return I expected.
Sure, absolutely.
That's the return you
expect. A couple of guys, I like that they're position players. Like And again,
Yep, I'm with you.
that catcher thing is intriguing because of who they may be giving up sooner than later in Danny Jansen, right? I'm not saying that this guy is ready to be a big leaguer and can step right in, but, maybe this is sort of something that would tell you if you were reaching that if they did, end up giving up Danny, that's sort of how you fill in the blanks as you get.
Again, this guy's awfully young.
He is very young. He's very far away, right? But you get the more chances you got, the better chances you got of getting one of them right. That's the ultimate goal here. Is if you're going to give up veteran guys to get some things to sort of layer the outskirts of your minor league system.
Oh, yeah, listen.
Get as many as you can possibly get, so sooner or later maybe you'll get one of them right.
The minor league system is not very good.
It is not.
And again, not a big fan of prospect ratings, but Jonathan Clase was rated 10th in the Mariners system by MLB Pipeline. And let me just see if Mr. Sharp appears anywhere. He was not listed in the top 30 prospects. But again, as I've said, you know what ratings are, right? The prospects value is only what the other team thinks it is. But Jonathan Clase, the Seattle Mariners' 10th rated prospect. And that's kind of where Teoscar Hernandez was. And again, I'm not drawing comparisons, but Teoscar Hernandez was right around there in the Houston Astros system when that deal was made. So the Jays have made their first deal. Yimi García going to the Mariners for a switch hitting. For a switch hitting outfielder, Jonathan Clase, and a catcher, Jacob Sharp. Jeff Passan, the main returner, we already talked about. Garcia was one of the best right-handed pitchers available at this deadline. Seattle remaining busy. So the Mariners have taken Yimi García. They've also got Randy Arozarena. They have not tapped into their top prospect list in order to get that deal done. Now, again, not knowing who the player to be named later is, because I know if you're a Jays fan, you are, again, this guy was listed as their 10th best prospect. So there you go. Good for Yimi García.
Yeah. He's a great guy, works hard.
He'll take the ball for them.
He's a hybrid. He'll pitch in the 6th inning like he'd pitch in the 9th inning. Like he can get a lefty out. That I think is very important, right? You want slow heartbeat guys, guys who can stuff people to death. He's one of them dudes, and good for him. This is what I said. Do him a solid. Like I know where the organization's at, and if you wanted to re-sign the guy, I know he's a giant fan of Pete Walker's, and he is a giant fan of the organization's. It wouldn't be hard. If you was wanting to bring this guy back, you could do it. I know that for a fact. I've talked to enough people that are around Yimi García. So, you could kill two birds. You could kill two birds with one stone. You give him up, you get some minor league things. If you want to bring him back for a decent price, I'm sure you could do that because they will be in the hunt for some arms.
Yes. And, of course, it's not always the same thing, but we talk a lot about that Aroldis Chapman deal where Aroldis Chapman was traded and then rejoined the team as a free agent. So that is entirely possible. And I just echoing everything we've heard about Yimi García is he's a fan of the organization. He likes the city.
He's a wonderful human.
He's a good dude.
He is.
So,
and I root for good dudes.
Yeah. So very happy for him. And again, as far as the Blue Jays are concerned, I think
they did okay. It seems to me like I don't know. That's sort of what you expected, right?
Yeah, that's what I expected.
Yeah. I don't think as soon as you read it, you were like, really?
No.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
That's pretty much what I expected.
Yeah.
David Samson is host of Nothing Personal, the podcast with David Samson. Got an interesting question for David Samson. Would he trade for a pitcher who is going to come with his own set of conditions? We'll find out next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. I had to plug in the laptop here because stuff's happening. It is Blair and Barker for a Friday. 7:07 will be the first pitch tonight. The Texas Rangers in town to take on the Blue Jays. Yusei Kikuchi will make his scheduled start tonight for the Blue Jays against Andrew Heaney, although, as we've said, stuff is happening around us. The Jays have just traded Yimi García to the Seattle Mariners for Jonathan Clase, a switch-hitting outfielder, and Jacob Sharp, a catcher. Clase was rated, again, as much as these ratings are worth, by MLB Pipeline as the 10th rated prospect in the Mariners system, which is interesting because the two players that the Rays got for Randy Arozarena were actually rated below him. Again, ratings are only matter. Player's rating is what you think he's worth, what the acquiring team thinks he's worth. But as my friend Mr. Barker says, at least they're adding position players to an organization that, quite frankly, doesn't have many position players. David Samson is host of Nothing Personal, the podcast with David Samson. He's also a former MLB executive with the Marlins and Expos. He joins us on Blair and Barker. David, as always, it's great to talk to you. It's a fun time of the year. We have a lot to get to, but I wanted to ask you a philosophical question because this whole thing with Garrett Crochet really intrigues me. Garrett Crochet, who's represented by CAA, the same agency that represented Josh Hader, is trying to, or he's being converted into a starter from a reliever. He's already had Tommy John surgery. He is a name that is out there because the Chicago White Sox apparently are going to trade everybody. But he has, quote unquote, made it known. And as far as I can tell, part of the way he's made it known is having John Heyman write it. But he has made it known that if a team wants to acquire him, in order for him to pitch in the postseason, he would like an extension because, he's on an innings limit. And I guess in some ways, I think it's a little similar, as I said, to Josh Hader. First of all, is that, if you're an executive in an acquiring team, are you looking at that as going, okay, right? Are you taking it seriously? If you're the White Sox, what do you do? Like, how do you, if you're the White Sox and you're their general manager, how do you talk about this with other teams?
Goose Fraba. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to keep calm because I've been talking about this all day. I started on Nothing Personal at 8 a.m. live, losing my mind. Are you telling me that not only does he need an extension in order to pitch in the playoffs, but also he won't be in the bullpen where starters go to in the postseason in order to get a ring? I'm talking about Cy Young Award winners.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about young pitchers with no service time, free agents to be, those who are locked up, those who are not. When you have a chance to get a ring, you go get a ring. And when you don't want it, it reminds me of a player. And gentlemen, you'll be able to remind me. I remember Eduardo Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when he last year said, you know what? I'd rather not go to a pennant race. Maybe it was the Dodgers who thought they had a trade for him. How's it going so far with the Diamondbacks in that trade and that deal and that signing? I'm a little worked up because it's Friday afternoon. I feel good. I'm happy to be with you guys. But if I need a starter, here's what I'm doing with Crochet. 0. I am not letting him anywhere near my clubhouse.
Wow. And he is, by most, by a lot of opinion, he's considered. He's other than Scooble, and I don't even know Scooble's on the block.
Yeah.
Maybe he is now, but he was kind of the belle of the ball, if you want to call it that. What does Chris Getz do now? His general manager, he's got to. He's got to be livid with the agent. He's got to be livid. They basically this is a guy coming back. They basically nursed him back from surgery.
It's so disappointing when stuff like this happens. And yes, the White Sox are looking to move players. Crochet is not a player that you have to move right now by any stretch, though obviously pitchers will get more. And you saw what the Blue Jays just did.
Mm-hmm.
That's a decent return for a pitcher this time of year. It's a smart move by the Blue Jays. And it's not a total worth selling, might I add. So I don't know if your audience is up in arms with their heads on fire because there's a huge fire sale going on. That's not what that trade is that just was announced. And, if you're Chris Getz, I think you hold him. If someone's willing to trade you what you think he's worth, you do it. It's sort of like the Mason Miller situation. Yeah, the guy's in a cast, but if I'm going to trade him, I'm still going to get back everything I want because I don't have to trade him. The White Sox do not have to trade this guy right now.
David, I don't know if this is a good question or not, but I'm going to ask it anyway because you've been on both sides of this ball. If you're a fan base, say, of the Garcia trade, if you're the Blue Jays fan base, how do you know if that's a good trade or not?
By the way, the baseball people don't know whether it's a good trade.
There you go.
And I hate to say it that way because I don't want to impugn those who make millions of dollars because we say that we do something that no one else can do. And that's funny to me. But what I will say is this. When you make a trade like this, you hope that once in a while you trade for someone and it works. But the odds are all of these rankings that you give make me smile. The number 10, that could be better than 14 and 22. Front offices don't look at those rankings. We do it for PR and let the PR people put in what the numbers of the rankings are. So then fans or media can say, oh, it looks like they got 3 of the top 30 prospects. Meanwhile, one of them is a total NP that nobody wanted on either team, but it's total eyewash window dressing. So the answer is right now, there's no way to know.
David, can we read into anything because of the good teams that are trading already, like the Orioles, like the Phillies, like the Mariners, like the Diamondbacks? They're awfully early, like they're getting after it already. Can we read anything into that?
Well, you say early, and I don't agree with that. I'm going to push back a little bit.
Okay.
While the deadline is the 30th, July 30th, remember, is the only deadline this year. There's no net, which used to be August 31st when you had to get players through waivers, but you could still maneuver your roster. After July 30th, what you have is what you have, and that's a new rule trying to get interest in this first deadline. But for me, I like making trades way earlier than this so I could see whether or not the team was going to respond. So I don't view this as early. And by the way, can we talk about the Mariners? They're a bit of chasing Amy, aren't they?
Yeah.
They had a huge lead. They gave it up. They're in second place, a game back of the Astros, and the Texas Rangers are like breathing on their neck. So to me, it's almost a little panicked versus a going for it all in.
If you were the Blue Jays and you sort of figure that you were trading Yusei Kikuchi, would you start him tonight?
Absolutely not. Under no circumstances. He would not be allowed to pitch. I'm not taking the chance that his arm falls off. We would speak to our manager. We did this up and down the minor league system. We were keeping track. If we had prospects in a deal where we were trying to acquire money, it didn't happen often, but it did. We wouldn't want those prospects playing because you don't want them to get hurt and screw up a deal. There's no reason to start him now. If he's on the move, I'm saying. If he's not on the move, then you start him like you're starting him. I don't think the Blue Jays are deluding themselves into thinking that they have a chance this year. They may say it, and what we really need to watch for, if we're Blue Jays fans, is what Mark says or Atkins, what they say on the 30th at 6:05 p.m. Because every GM meets the media after the deadline. And I hope you ask him the question. So what was your approach? When did you stop believing in this team? Do you still believe in this team, depending on what they do? So what was your question again?
You say why are you starting him? Yeah.
I'm only starting him if I'm not trading him.
See, okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. But one of the things, and this, I'm going to file this under bad sports writer logic, and I know you're a fan of bad sports writer logic, but I'm starting Yusei Kikuchi because I want to make the market think that I'm still valuing him, right? That's what people say. I want the market to think I'm still valuing him. If I don't start him, you guys are either going to think, one, he's hurt, or two, he's already got a deal worked out, so we're not going to bother talking to him. But I'm going to start him so I can convince you guys that he is the thing closest to my heart right now. Does that happen at all?
No.
Okay.
Here's what's funny about that. When a pitcher pitches, like Blake Snell, everyone's all excited about Blake Snell. If he tomorrow, when he pitches, if he gives up 8 runs in 2 innings, does that change the market for him? It does not. And if a pitcher goes out and gives up runs, or if he goes 8 shutty, and all of a sudden, like, oh, we want an extra prospect. We want your number 4 instead of your number 9. He had a good start. No. And all your players on the market, all the GMs have all spoken to each other. It's not like the old days where you don't know when you're going to speak to people because it's hard to reach them. They're all texting each other all the time. So there's no more secrets, Marty. Sneakers.
That's very good. That's very good. Do organizations still... Do they need eyes on a major leaguer before they trade for him? In other words,
I would.
In other words, could I go into the press box tonight and go, okay, let's see, the Mariners
Justin
are
Turner.
The Mariners are here, so-and-so's here, so-and-so's here, so-and-so's here. 3 of those teams need pitching, therefore they're interested in Kikuchi. Or is that, again, sort of like 1970 sports writer stuff?
Well, no, we used to look at the scout list. When the scout list is a list that you get for all of the teams who are sending, who they're sending, who sit in the scout section of your ballpark. And you have control over that section, so we know exactly who's there and what teams they are from. And we will have an idea, if not certainty, of who they're there to see. It's very rare in the big leagues that someone goes to scout someone and discovers, hey, that guy's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
That can happen like in low A, maybe.
That Guerrero kid's not bad. We might have an interest in him.
Like, hey, forget Kikuchi. What about that first baseman, man? He's good. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Any chance that now I know you don't like it when players come out and talk to the media badly about organization, clubhouse players. But this time of the year, Chris Bassett yesterday basically took the Blue Jays organization behind the woodshed. I mean, he did it in a Chris Bassett way, but he basically did that. Does a front office this time of the year care any whatsoever about a veteran guy who could be here on your team next year, what they say to the media?
The answer is yes, and I don't want to lie to you. We'd pretend we didn't, but of course we do. Now, I didn't see what he said, so I can't comment. What did he say? How bad was it?
I mean, it was less about. He said there are a lot of demons in this dugout right now.
Yep.
Losing 12-0, losing 5-0, not getting any hits.
He dropped effort one time.
He dropped effort one time. We've got to be better.
Nobody's hands are clean, I think.
He said nobody's hands are clean here. The trade deadline is a factor. It's weighing on guys. I mean, we're paraphrasing, but he didn't come out and say this whole organization's a mess, but he came out and basically said this situation's a mess.
Yeah,
that would be the way I'd put it.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it true that when your team underperforms, that you get a lot of that from the front office and the dugout? The San Francisco Giants are going through it right now, and they're saying, hey, Conforto, I think, said yesterday, keep us together, man. Mm-hmm. We're going to be good. I feel a yacht streak coming on right now. Players, for whatever reason, do get anxious around the trade deadline. And I've spoken to a bunch of players about this, including players I've traded and players who I told could be traded, but we didn't trade. I always communicated with the players. They're anxious. And I never understood a player who wanted to stay on a losing team. If we have a chance to trade you now, if we trade you to another crap team, then you can be angry with me. Mm-hmm. But if we trade you into a race, just say thank you on your way out the door and get an Airbnb. And I know that sounds harsh. I really do get that. But it's so hard to win in baseball. Mm-hmm. And if, like Crochet, if you have a chance to get out of a $120 losing team and go pitch for whoever, say the Yankees, you should run to that, not jog. But it is anxiety producing. And obviously when a team underproduces, you have chirping. But if I'm in the front office, I am talking to him because it's just a bad look. It makes us look like sore losers. It makes us look like we're amateurs and that we don't know what we're doing. I'd rather take it straight on with the Blue Jays and say, man, this sucked. I mean, we were supposed to be good. And we expected this team to compete, if not win a division. And it didn't happen. I'm not blaming our evaluations. I'm not blaming the players. I'm blaming the game of baseball because I've been around it for 2 decades. When you go through something like this, it's terrible. But guess what? We can win with this team. Some message like that.
David, in the days leading up to the deadline, when a deal is on the table and both sides have agreed on the framework for a deal, how many voices should be in the room when that deal is finalized? Do you want
the best question ever?
Do you want, like in your case, president? I don't know if you want the owner in, but president and general manager, who do you want in the room when we're sitting there? Okay, we've agreed on it. I'm going to start making the calls. Who do you want in
the room? I want the VP of player personnel. I want the AGM. I want the GM. I want the president of baseball operations. I want the team president. I want the CFO in the office next door. I want the head of scouting in the office somewhere available by phone in case we need to talk about certain prospects. Mm-hmm. I need the manager to answer his phone, and I need to have the owner not bothering me. Mm-hmm. Because once we get to an LOI or once we have an opportunity for a trade, then you bring in the owner. because the final thing that's said between all teams' front offices is we have a deal pending ownership approval.
Okay.
But everyone lies about that because the owners already know what's happening. But what you do when you say pending ownership approval is you send out your people to call everyone who is in it for that player one more time to say, listen, we've got a deal. We're moving this guy. Are you willing to do blank?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say no, you say, all right, we're done with you. So all of that is done during quote unquote pending ownership approval.
How many times do you think, or in your career, did you think you had a deal and you're calling other teams to let them know you have a deal and the other team says, no, just a minute. We're going with, we're adding, John Smith or whatever. How many times does that happen, or more often than not?
We've done it, and it's been done to us. You were there. You were there for one of the most unbelievable things that happened in my career. And I know it because you and I spoke. This is a long, long time ago. There was a pitcher for Los Angeles who was a number 5 starter, pre-steroids. His name was Eric Gagne.
Yes.
And we had a player, the board game player. Oh, heaven. Milton Bradley.
Okay, right.
We had a trade done, Milton Bradley for Eric Gagne, done. And then the Dodgers changed their mind, and I've thought about it all the time since then. It's been a year or two since I thought about this, but I thought about, did they figure out that he was going to start to become a closer and throw 97 and have that scoreless streak and all of a sudden need a new uniform and a hat? How did that happen that we almost got Gagne for Bradley and then we didn't?
Wow.
So it happens.
Yeah.
David, do you? I'm intrigued about this. So if I ask a question that don't make a ton of sense because I've never been in a room and I've never actually called another GM this time of the year, do you actually do that and say, hey, I have this guy that nobody else would think that you have this guy available. What would you give me for him? Like, do you start the conversation, or do you actually need a GM to call you because you think you would get more for that player because they're calling and not you calling? That makes sense.
We call them, and this is an ill-timed expression right now, so I don't want to offend anyone. They're called sniper calls.
Oh.
A sniper call is when you call another team and you haven't had any discussions about a particular player. Hey, we would make Beckett available. We would make Giancarlo Stanton available, but only for this. And then we would give the package. And if they don't hit that exact package, then there's no deal. And if they do hit that exact package, there's still maybe no deal, because then we'd say to ourselves, uh-oh. That's like when you make an offer on a house and and this house says, yeah, I'm in. And you said, oh, no, I just totally overpaid, darn it. Yeah. So those kind of calls absolutely happen amongst teams all the time.
So it's all about relationships with other GMs. Like some GMs will know you're full of it, basically.
Well, it's funny. There are reputations that GMs have, and some of them have bad reputations, and others have good reputations, but you keep track. So there's certain people. Dave Dombrowski's a great example. When you have a deal with Dave, you have a deal. And he's going to be very forthcoming with you about what he wants, and it can get done quickly. Dealing with like AJ Preller, you never know what you have because he changes like left and right, and then you don't know, and then you realize, oh, God, I'm likely getting screwed. So everybody's different in every way, but you keep we would keep track, and even in a document, like we would just have it just to remind ourselves, like what teams do what, how they act, how teams use owners versus they don't use their owners. Who, like the Yankees, Brian Cashman, he always overinflates his prospects publicly. And he does that thinking that other teams are going to be, oh, we'll take this guy because the Yankees say he's so good. Yeah. And then our scouts are like, man, he's not that good. So you get a reputation.
Oh. Yeah. The Dodgers were, when I started covering baseball, I remember being told one time, beware of Dodgers prospects, because every Dodger prospect was the next Sandy Koufax, or the next Willie Mays. They just were. David, thanks so much for doing this, man. Awesome. Terrific insight. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you're the best. Thank you so much.
You too. Take care. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. It's David Samson, host of Nothing Personal, the podcast.
I'm not sure I'd want that job, but I'd love being in the room this time of the year and just hear the conversation back and forth and like David taking a call for a player and then him hanging up. That guy's so full of like things like that, right? Just the conversation, the back and forth. You give me this, you got 30 seconds. I would love to be in a room and hear that.
Yeah, this wasn't a trade deadline story, but I was sitting in JP Ricciardi's office in spring training one day, just shooting the crap, and another GM called, and JP picks up the receptionist says GM's on the line, and I get up to leave the office, and JP just motions me, sits down, puts it on speakerphone. The guy comes on. Hey, JP, what's up, man? Let's shake things up. And, and then it wasn't a trade deadline thing, but I asked him, I said, like, how often does that happen? He said, with this particular guy, it'll happen like a couple of times in a spring. Huh. And it'll just be, and I'm not going to say the players that we're talking about, they weren't named players, but it was just interesting. And I remember asking him, so basically, like, this guy's like you, sitting in his office in spring. It was like 9:30 in the morning, having a coffee. And he goes, I think I'll call JP and see if I can get somebody from him.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, but it was interesting.
I just wonder how you get that relationship back and forth of being, I'm sure some GMs know that you're not worthy of what you're saying.
Well, I mean, the old thing we always used to talk about, too, is you do the GM tree, right? So you'd go, okay, this guy worked. And in the case of Mark Shapiro, there's a ton of people who've worked for him. So there used to be a thing that if you're trading a big player, a massive player, you're going to trade him to someone you trust because you don't want to get screwed.
Oh, that's good.
But that's the way we think. That's not, like you made the point about the Rays. Rays will trade with anybody.
Anybody.
They get what they want. I
don't care if it's the Orioles. Here you go.
If it was possible, the Rays would make a trade with their own AAA team together. Like, they would trade with anybody.
Yeah.
Literally. And it doesn't matter. Same division, whatever. Who cares?
No. Well, we have our own way.
Yeah.
If that guy fits in or he doesn't.
We didn't get a chance to talk to John Schneider today. Clearly, we know why now because there was the Yimi García deal was being made. But let's play John Schneider's pregame availability today because he does talk about Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and where he is in his return from injury. And that, they got somebody who can play baseball for 50-odd games or whatever's left. This is John Schneider from today.
Any clarity on next steps for IKF?
He's running the bases today, kind of doing everything out here again. If he feels good, we'll get him moving to Buffalo and start playing tomorrow.
So you probably play a few games there then?
Play a few games there. Probably 5-ish innings. First go-around DH a game. Get him probably at least one more game in the field. Have him play some third, have him play some short, and kind of just gauge out how he's feeling.
He's kind of looking at middle of next week and being early.
I think so, yeah. He's been chomping at the bit for quite a while, so hopefully everything goes well. But yeah, looking at kind of middle of next week.
How do you think Yusei has kind of handled all the speculation rumors this time of year while still going out trying to compete?
He's done a great job. I think, initially, when you're in a new scenario, it's a little bit tough. And I think he's done a phenomenal job of kind of focusing on, each outing and kind of just taking one start at a time. So he's in a good spot, ready to go today against a good lineup, and hopefully he has a good one.
You had to kind of talk to him at all about, like, hey, just keep it locked on this?
I think we've had those conversations, over the past couple of weeks, I think, so he's been good with it. He understands it. And, you can tell by how he's competing out there that he's pretty locked in.
John, approaching your third deadline now as manager, obviously in a different position than the last 2 years. Just what is it like being in this position?
Yeah, it's different, I think you look and, obviously we're frustrated that, it's a different position than it has been. And, myself, staff, players, we all feel that. And, it's unfortunate. It's a part of it, every year isn't going to go exactly as planned. And you got to kind of just, you manage the room a little bit to make sure you're talking to guys. And again, I've said it before, if the effort hasn't been where it's been, I think you need to be a little bit different. But the way that the guys are going about it is the right way to go about it. And, nothing's official till it's official, but definitely, we're all, we're hopeful we're in a different spot than we are right now.
That's John Schneider, manager of the Blue Jays. So there you go. News IKF working his way back. Did anybody ask about Joey Votto? There's been crickets on the Joey Votto front lately. It is Friday. We will go to the back leg line, 416-413-3959. What? I'm just asking. 416-413-3959. 7:07 is the first pitch tonight. Again, if you have missed it, shame on you. No, I'm just kidding. The Jays have traded Yimi García to the Seattle Mariners for Jonathan Clase, a switch-hitting outfielder, and Jacob Sharp, a catcher. I don't know if he's. I don't know anything about him. He's listed as a catcher and an outfielder. Could be a utility guy. He's listed as 5'7" or 5'8"
They play the
or whatever,
field.
so.
Who cares other than that?
Exactly. They got two guys.
Who cares?
They got two guys who will go into their organization and
They play the field.
they can play the field. Exactly.
That's it.
And Class A seems to be closer to the majors than the other guy. Class A was rated and again ranked, I should say. Keep this in mind. Rankings are basically eyewash, but he was ranked in MLB Pipeline's latest list as the 10th best prospect in the Mariners organization. And if you believe that list, he was ranked ahead of the two guys that the Rays got for Randy.
Of course, I believe it.
So, anyhow, we are going to take a break and come back with the back leg line. Can I say that? Come back with the back leg line?
You did.
I did. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. It's Sportsnet. All right, there's been a little more fallout from the Yimi García trade. The Blue Jays have what?
Did fall out. Okay, go. Who they called up? Go for
I
it.
mean, I explain to me what I just
go.
did.
Who's coming up?
Zach Pop has been
There it
called
is.
up, and Jonathan Clase, who was acquired from the Mariners, has been optioned to Triple
Nice.
A. Jimmy
what's your
Garcia
mind?
sent to the Mariners for Jonathan Clase and Jacob Sharp, a catcher. Some other deals have happened today as well. The Baltimore Orioles getting Sir Anthony Dominguez and Christian Pache and Zach Eflin. The Mariners also getting Randy Arozarena, and the Boston Red Sox picking up James Paxton. We talked a little bit. The Arizona Diamondbacks have got AJ Puck. Jimmy Garcia. Yusei Kikuchi is still scheduled to make a start tonight for the Blue Jays, even though he, of course, is on the trade block as a player with an expiring contract. It is Friday. That means we go to the back leg line, one of our favorite parts of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Your chance to ask questions, leave comments for, make suggestions of Kevin Barker. Jason in Vancouver took the opportunity.
Jason from Vancouver.
That's what I said.
And I just had a question for you both. And I was just wondering, with the trade deadline coming up, why aren't we hearing more about the Blue Jays front office actually doing better due diligence and potentially maybe looking to trade away guys like Gossman and Bassett? They're aging. They're starting to get a year older. Like, you start to see that maybe they're on the downside of their careers, and the Jays office talking about, hey, we're going to try to rebuild the team for next year to contend, to me just doesn't make sense. And I also think they are also doing a bit of an injustice, maybe not looking at potentially trading away Vladdy, because right now, do you really know what he is? It's been 6 years in the league, and he's really put together maybe a year and 3 months of high-quality baseball. And I don't know if I would want to lock down my team's franchise player who isn't really a franchise player. Anyways, I'll hang up and listen to your thoughts. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the front office is doing their due diligence. Again, maybe people don't believe me when I say that front offices, they're not going to make public statements and say, folks, here's what we're doing at the trade deadline. We're trading Garcia for two guys from the Seattle Mariners, and we're going to trade Yusei Kikuchi, and we're going to trade Kevin. Teams don't come out and tell you what they're going to do. Anything you read is basically somebody talking to somebody who heard from somebody that somebody said this. I mean, and I'm not taking anything away from everybody. The reporters do a great job. I did that all the time. It's until a deal is made, it's just smoke. I will ask you, did any of you hear Yimi García to the Seattle Mariners yesterday? or the day before, or the day before that. I didn't. Were there rumors about Sir Anthony Dominguez going to the Orioles? Nope. So just because you're not hearing anything or other people aren't hearing anything and aren't reporting it doesn't mean that it isn't happening. It's why I don't believe any of this. If somebody calls up the Jays tonight and wants Chris Bassett and gives them 2 players for Chris, I'm sure they'd listen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, guys get hurt. Mason Miller, all you have to do is look at what happened. Mason Miller was going to be traded at the trade deadline. Then he breaks his finger, granted on his non-pitching hand, but he breaks his finger slamming it on the trainer's table. Like, stuff happens. So this idea that everything is all planned out right now on the part of the Blue Jays or in any team is just not there. I'm sure there were other teams interested in Yimi García. Now that he's gone to the Mariners, those teams have to look someplace else. Maybe the Orioles were interested in Yimi García, but Sir Anthony Dominguez made more sense for them at less of a price, so they made that deal. We've got to be careful in, saying, why wouldn't the front office do their due diligence and see what's out there for non-free agents? Well, they are.
Yeah, and with the Vladdy thing, I think it sounds like at least the people that I talk to that they're not giving up on next year. Like they, still think that they may have a decent chance of, being competitive and making a little decent run at
you don't have
trying to make the playoffs.
If you don't have Vladdy, you got no chance.
Well,
next year. You got none.
I would think, Jason, call back next year, and maybe the next trade deadline. That's when the conversation around Vladdy, I would think, would get a little hotter, and teams would be a little bit more interested just because of where the Jays might be or where they may not be. That might be where you get your wish. I think the signing Vladdy, I think that ship sailed. I think they had their opportunity. They either didn't want to or they were in no hurry to do it. Now it's going to cost them, I think, a little bit too much money. And I just think if it was going to happen, Jeff, it would have happened already.
Emilio and Markham.
If the Jays had all this money to chase Soto and Ohtani, this is probably an old question. Why didn't they go after some other people, and save us all this regret that we have to watch all this summer? It's been hard. Bye, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. It is an old question. We've made the point. Shohei Ohtani is worth that money because of the money he was going to bring into your franchise. Shohei Ohtani's paid back what the Dodgers have paid out for him already with all those sponsorships they've got from Japan. Now, people are saying, why didn't they spend that money elsewhere? Let me ask you, what would you spend it on? Cody Bellinger? How's that working out for the Cubs? Rhys Hoskins? Who were some other guys that were out there? Jorge Soler? Teoscar? I'm not saying that you couldn't have gone out and added a couple of players, but what I am saying is there's
only one Ohtani.
There was only one Ohtani. Now, you can ask me, why didn't some of that money go towards getting Vladdy or Bo locked up long term? I think there you can have a discussion. That's obviously an organizational decision, but we got to get over this idea that there was money for Shohei Ohtani. It existed for no one else. And the reason it existed was because ownership knew when you get Shohei Ohtani, you're buying the entire economic ecosphere. You're buying all those Japanese sponsorships. If you're a communications company, maybe it opens doors for you in the Japanese market.
It's a moneymaker.
It's a moneymaker.
Mm-hmm.
It is a moneymaker. The Dodgers will make money. They'll make Shohei Ohtani's money back 2 times over, at least. And that's why, again, he's a unicorn. There was Shohei Ohtani money, and that money wasn't out there for anybody else.
Am I disappointed that there wasn't a Turner and a couple of those names that you mentioned right there? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I told you this, and we've been talking about this forever. It took Turner times 2.
But again, you've also got to realize that you are dealing with free agents, and free agents don't have to come and play for you.
That's fair.
It gets back to the weakness in this lineup gets back to the fact that this organization didn't have anybody to trade and anybody in the minor leagues that anybody wanted. Bing and Coquitlam. Bing. I wonder in relation to Bing Crosby.
What makes you think that this team can compete next year in 2025? Like, to me, the goal is to try to win championships, not just to make playoffs. And if you look at the roster moving forward, they're going to be losing potentially one, maybe two guys from their starting rotation. Their starting rotation remaining guys like Bassett and Gaussman and Barrios are all getting a year older and all have a ton of mileage on their arms. You guys said yesterday that you don't think that Mano is the closer for this team, so they need to go out and get a closer. They need to fully revamp their bullpen. We don't know what really Vlad Guerrero is. Is he the type of player that's on the hot streak for the past month, or is he the type of player that we've seen for the past 2 years? So in my view, I think this team really needs to be fully broken down and rebuilt up, and also just to maybe shift the culture away from kind of the negative feel that this team has kind of put out for the past year and a half. Anyway, I'll hang up and listen to your thoughts. Thanks, guys, and have a good weekend.
I mean, there's one overriding reason that I think this team can compete in 2025. One reason, and that's ownership. Because ownership will spend money. Now, don't ask me if I think this front office is capable of putting together a team that can compete in 2025. But I know ownership. Ownership has stepped up. I've made this point often. This ownership group deserves better than it's gotten from this front office. It really does. They're running a $235 million payroll. And they fixed up the ballpark.
Yeah.
And they built this, the space age, the NASA facility they have in Florida. So that's, what I'm hanging my hat on is the fact that you've got committed ownership. And I also, I am admitting I am a lot more optimistic about Vladdy now than I was a couple of years ago.
Can I ask you a question? That's two of the three callers have asked about Vladdy and not knowing what he is. He hit the 48, 111. That's 48 homers, 111 RBIs the year that everybody thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. The next year he had 32 homers and 97 RBIs with 35 doubles. Last year he had 30 doubles, 26 homers, and 94 RBIs. Out of any of the names that you just mentioned,
I know where you're going.
Are they doing any of that?
No.
I mean,
let's just here's the thing. Let's split the
46 and what is that? The 48 and 111. I want that just like everybody else does. But man alive,
you'd take 30 and 100, wouldn't you?
I mean, 32 and 97 2 years ago with 35 doubles.
That I think, and I admit I'm as much. I'm as much to blame as anybody when it comes to this. Looking at Vladdy's first year and then expecting him to live up to expectations, it doesn't always work this way. All I can say is, as someone who's felt that way, I don't feel that way anymore based on what I've seen from Vladdy this year, because I've seen him. Vladdy is the only guy this year that has been able to pull himself out of an offensive hole. There's nobody, even George Springer, he hasn't pulled himself out of the hole to the degree Vladdy has. I think Vladdy has shown me more this year than a lot of other years because he's got nobody around him. He's got nobody around him. There's you know what? Spencer Horwitz is the only guy he's had around him all year that's had an impact.
Yeah, bring up the Yankees with the dude who plays center who hits a bazillion homers.
Exactly.
Yeah, they had to go out and get the left-handed version of him.
So
because they didn't have anybody else around him either. Like, again, I just don't know what people want from Vladdy.
And I will also...
Is it the $300 million?
I'll also get back to this. No, and I'll also get back to this, that Vladdy plays every day. Now, he may DH some days, but Vladdy plays every day. Like, give the dude credit. Vladdy posts up. And that's why one of the things that drives him nuts, people always, and we've had this discussion, people always talk about, oh, Vladdy's smiling, the team's in last place, such, which is, garbage. But he plays every day. When you can criticize Vladdy? When this team is 20 games out and he doesn't play because it's a tough right-hander, or it doesn't feel good, or, then you can start criticizing Vladdy. But when a dude plays every day for a team that's not very good, a team that is not committed to him on a long-term contract yet, I'm sorry.
It's not Vladdy's fault that the organization didn't go out and put people around him.
No.
After the 48, 111 year.
I want to get to Jerry and Sudbury. Optimistic call.
The question came up, why is Horowitz able to transition from AAA ball to the Blue Jays and keep on hitting? I think it's because he's not buying into the hitting coach's program. They've had a hitting problem for 2 seasons now. Fire everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was optimistic.
Yeah, we have no idea if he's bought into it or not.
I think he's
a good hitter. I think he has talent. I think a lot of guys, and boy, it's real hard for me to say this. You could round off names who don't have talent on an everyday basis. I've said this to you, and I'll continue to say it. When is it often that John writes out his lineup and goes, more talent than that starting pitcher, more talent than that starting pitcher, more talent than that starting pitcher, more talent than that? It's rare, if ever. That's the thing, right? I've asked around about why does slumps last so long? And I've gotten the same answer 3 different times. Talent. It's just me against you. I am better at the plate than you are at throwing the baseball to me.
I also think
has a lot to do with it.
You've made the point about Spencer Horowitz. He's a lefty, and I think that helps.
That
a
has a
little
lot
bit
to do with it. Like that pitch, pitch coming into you instead of going away from you, hitting the ball the other way, letting the ball travel with velocity the way it is. It is a ton to ask. That is why right-handed hitting now, if you find somebody that's good at it who can give you 24 and 95, don't be in such a hurry to get rid of it. Because basically you're trading him to find him.
Last question, Dennis from somewhere in Alberta.
Longtime Blue Jays fan, longtime fan of your show.
Thanks.
Just on the surface, watching what's going on, not just this year, but the last couple of years, listening to the comments at the end of every game. We just got to get better. There's another team in the city of Toronto that for 57 years hasn't won a championship, but yet the asses are in the seats. Every game, every night. Is what we're watching now a carbon copy of exactly what we've watched for 57 years with that team? Does the ownership just figure as long as the bills are paid, as long as the asses are in the seats, then we're good? I sure hope as a Blue Jays fan that's not the case, but that is certainly what it's starting to look like. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say this: not if that was the way they felt, they wouldn't be running a $235 million payroll. They'd be running a $120 million payroll. I know what you're saying about the Leafs. The danger of comparing the Leafs to the Jays. First of all, you've got twice as many games with the Jays. Twice as many home games as you do with the Leafs. You've also got basically 2.5 times the size of the stadium compared to the Air Canada Centre. Maybe 2 times, 2.5 times. You can't compare the organizations. You can't compare the sports. What I think does warrant a comparison is the fact that the Maple Leafs, the team you were talking about, has had Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner. I mean, it's had a core that you'd cry for. And for whatever reason, and because it's the NHL, you have a salary cap, so you can only spend up to a certain amount of money. The Leafs do that. And for whatever reason, they haven't been able to cash in this window of opportunity. So I guess if you were trying to draw a comparison, you would say Marner and Matthews and Bo and Vladdy, 2 instances where you haven't been able to take advantage of having generational talent. That is a loose comparison that works, but the sports are so different and the economics are so different that I don't. And also, I mean, everybody in hockey makes the playoffs for the most part. Half the teams make the playoffs. Even with the wild card in baseball, the chances of you making the playoffs aren't as good as they are in hockey. So I think we got to be a little dangerous when we compare that. But I know what you're getting at. But again, Kevin, I get back to this. If ownership wasn't committed, ownership could have gone after that playoff loss last year, ownership could have gone to Ross and Mark and said, look, we're going to have a lot of people in the ballpark because the new ballpark, those new things are going to attract people. We're going to get them in. Let's just cut the payroll.
Yeah.
Let's run a team out there
and
for
$150
million. And they didn't do that.
No.
So
there is a question there, though. Did they waste what they have now, which is the rotation and the two guys you just mentioned?
That's on the front office.
Absolutely.
That's not on ownership.
That's the thing, right? Did you do enough to surround it can you walk away from this thing if it was to happen to have to either have to or want to tear it down? Can you walk away from it going, we did everything we could do to make it work and it just didn't?
No.
You can't say that.
They've misread this team on 2 occasions. I do believe I'm right here, and I'm going to keep saying it. They overcorrected after that playoff loss to Seattle, and they undercorrected after what happened last year in Minnesota. They made the decision to go full tilt towards pitching and defense.
Because that's when the shortstop and the center fielder ran into each other, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's the only reason it happened, but that I really do believe. And then we had to get rid of, you had to get rid of Teoscar and Lourdes because you wanted to change the culture in the dugout and et cetera, et cetera. And I'll get back to this. I think you can, those 2 deals you can defend on a standalone basis. I'm not saying you would do them over again, but there was a logic and a reason to those deals. What didn't make sense to me was making both of those deals at the same time and not being able to replace the players. That's the only question. I will listen to Ross Atkins defend Varsho for Moreno and Gurriel. I will listen to him defend the Teoscar Hernandez deal because they weren't going to re-sign him. It's hard for me to defend both of those deals happening at the same time and then thinking that Kevin Kiermaier and Brandon Belt were going to be good enough to fill in. What are you pointing at me? You can say it too.
You just got, you're the host.
Oh, well, I mean, Morosi just tweeted that Chad Green is one of the Phillies' top targets. So there you go. I was a trade.
No.
Morosi just tweeted that Chad Green is one of the Phillies' top targets. Rob Thompson knows him from his Yankees days. 2 and 2 equals 4. But
most of the time.
Yeah. And Chad Green is a guy with another year under contract. I think Chad Green's a guy. I think Chad Green is more likely to be traded than some of the other guys in this team. I really do.
I think he's got some value because of where he came from.
He has some
value. And people have seen him with the lights bright.
But anyhow, there we are. The Jays have made their first trade of the trade deadline era. That's wrong. Trading Yimi García to the Seattle Mariners for a couple of minor leaguers. We'll be back on Monday. Trade deadline is Tuesday. Keep it tuned to Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Keep it on Sportsnet. Keep reading sportsnet.ca. If the Jays make a deal, you will see it, read it, and hear it first right here. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend. We'll chat on Monday.